For a session presented by Discover Puerto Rico, please welcome Director of Research and Analytics for Discover Puerto Rico, Alisha Valentine, in conversation with Skift ex-head of studio, Jeremy Kressmann.
Hi, Alisha. Really happy to have you here today at the Aviation Forum.
Thanks so much.
So let me set the stage here. We have increased federal funding coming out of the pandemic. Discover Puerto Rico invested heavily to build a stronger marketing approach for the island. And one of those areas of significant investment was this new marketing campaign you now have called Live Boricua, which of course Boricua is a colloquial term for someone from Puerto Rico by birth or descent, if I got that right. But it also speaks to this way of life and a state of mind on the island. So I would love to start, Alisha, by having you give us an overview of what Discover Puerto Rico is thinking about marketing right now, and then also help us connect the dots to the aviation audience that's here today about that marketing.
Sure, thanks Jeremy, thanks for having us. Certainly the Live Boricua campaign is a tremendous opportunity and push for us right now, really able to capitalize on what consumers are seeking in terms of travel product and really making connections with the places that they're visiting. And as you mentioned, Boricua is a term that Puerto Ricans use to identify themselves, and it comes from the Tayanos, the indigenous people to Puerto Rico. And so the campaign really features the faces of the people of Puerto Rico and the history and culture that the island offers. Areas outside of San Juan, certainly we're not necessarily featuring the beaches. We're not going to distinguish ourselves from other Caribbean competitors or even US mainland beaches if we're just focused there. And in terms of investment, the opportunity that many destinations had coming out of the pandemic through the CARES Act and American Rescue Plan was certainly significant. But also, after Hurricane Maria, Congress had allocated funds specifically for tourism marketing, but those weren't allocated until the new administration took office in January of 2021. So those came together and we had the opportunity to really make significant investments within the past 2 years. So we were able to shore up our traditional markets on the East Coast and Florida specifically in 2021 and saw record demand and overnight visitation. And now really moving into 22, expanding into some new markets, lots of Texas markets. Last week we were at the Austin Food and Wine Festival, showcasing the Puerto Rican culinary and rum culture. And even a direct flight from that market for the first time in the last year. So certainly we lead with access and really understanding the markets from which consumers are wanting direct flights, and hopefully being able to work with the airlines in understanding our organization and how we're prioritizing where those funds are being invested.
So lots of momentum, lots happening with marketing right now. I would actually love to show a clip of this Live Boricua campaign for those of us in the audience. We've got a clip here that I think we can show now.
In Puerto Rico, we call ourselves Boricua, a unique name honoring our island heritage and the vibrant spirit of our people. When you bask in the warmth of our beaches, when you taste the love in our food, when you embrace the call of our adventures, you'll find that spirit in yourself. Dare to live every moment. Live Boricua.
That's great. It's great to see it in action, and it sounds like this is playing in quite a few markets in the US right now to attract more demand, right?
Yeah, we just launched this in May in 27 US markets, and certainly that's a commitment to all the markets that have direct service, as well as some markets we're hoping to develop based off of what our research shows has the greatest propensity to drive incremental visits.
Let's talk a little bit more about visitation. I recently read that Puerto Rico broke pre-pandemic records for tourism, both in 2021, 2022. Can you share how you got there? And then I'm curious how the island's tourism landscape actually looks. Is it the same as it was prior to the pandemic? Or are you seeing new habits starting to develop?
So certainly we were pretty uniquely positioned coming out of the pandemic as a US destination that had 80% of its visitation pre-pandemic from US markets. Certainly, we were a destination that had the kind of product that consumers were looking for after being stuck at home for so long. And we took the island took COVID seriously, and so consumers really viewed us as a safe destination. And we were able to take advantage of many international competitors either still being closed or having other hoops to jump through for consumers, and at the same time really make this significant investment and see that record visitation in 2021 by shoring up those established markets. And now for 2022, our lodging sector is seeing a 15% increase in demand even over last year that set records. The international airport in San Juan has 6% more passenger activity this year to date than last year. And certainly we're seeing changes in how consumers are moving, and that starts with back into hotels. That many consumers made the choice to stay in rentals during the pandemic, and we're seeing a shift back into the hotel market, which is encouraging for those properties, but also because our meetings and events have really come back, and the distribution between leisure and events is back to where we were in 2019. But in terms of how consumer behavior has changed, the move to outdoor recreation, we certainly saw record demand for national park product. So that movement really away from urban areas impacted us as well. So certainly San Juan is our major market, but we saw consumers really making choices to head out into other parts of the island, our mountainous regions, especially into more remote beaches. And so being able to capitalize on how consumers really wanted to travel. We saw an increase in our product for short-term rentals during the pandemic, and most of that especially in those more remote areas of the island.
Yeah, this point about people going to lesser known parts of the island, let's actually take a look at that slide that we had just before. This is actually a map of some of the changes in visitation habits throughout the island. You could probably speak to this in our next question, Alisha, but with travelers moving away from cities as you're describing, and they're going to some of these lesser known parts of the island, it seems like it would have an impact on route planning. If I'm an airline executive thinking about where to fly people in Puerto Rico, what are some other opportunities or advantages for airlines that maybe are interested in operating flights to the island, but they're looking beyond San Juan? What else is out there with like Ponce, Aguadilla? Speak to that.
Of course. So yes, this map is showing us the change in visitation between 2019 and 2021. So certainly San Juan remains the population center and where most visitors are going, but in terms of where that change of visitation was, the darker the blue or red here, the greater the change. And so you'll see that it's really those more remote areas that saw the greatest shift and increase in visitation. And it's a small island, it's only 100 by 30 miles, but consumers want to quickly be able to connect to that kind of product. And certainly Ponce and Aguadilla that are identified there on the map enable them to connect to that product even quicker.
That's so interesting. It's cool to see how people are getting out and exploring more of these lesser known parts of the island. I love it.
And this is geolocation data that we're using not only to identify visitor origin markets, but certainly then what they're doing when they're on the island.
Very cool. Alisha, I have to address the elephant in the room when we talk about Puerto Rico. We all know how beautiful the island is. It's got great food, great beaches, warm and friendly people, but there's hurricanes, right? Puerto Rico is just rebounding from Hurricane Fiona, as we know. As we think about unexpected events, can you talk a little bit about how Puerto Rico is preparing its tourism infrastructure for unexpected events in the future? As I think about this as an airline executive, what are you doing to prepare and get ready for whatever may be coming in the future?
So Hurricane Fiona hit 5 days shy of the 5-year anniversary of Hurricane Maria.
Wow.
So the island certainly has had its challenges, and the industry's learned a lot. In fact, the airport was up and running regular schedules the day following the hurricane.
It's amazing.
And we were in touch with our industry partners, certainly our hotels and restaurants and businesses, and little damage sustained. And certainly the issue that gets the most attention is the power grid, and that certainly remains an issue that needs that investment. I mentioned, though Congress allocated those dollars in 2017, they were just released last year. So that investment that's needed for those long-term solutions are just now being able to be invested in.
Okay. So, Alisha, we're sitting with some of the most important people in the aviation industry. These are all of your decision makers out there. What one thing do you really want them to know about the island as we think about Puerto Rico and aviation's connection here?
So certainly that Discover Puerto Rico has been able to make over $50 million of investment in marketing and leisure sales in the past 18 months.
Yeah.
Has driven demand, and from our forecast certainly anticipate it continuing to do so. And we're setting records with lodging and air passengers and visitation, and with this Live Boricua campaign really having the kind of messages that consumers are seeking right now, that real connection to the places that they're visiting. But also that we're able to really sustain this momentum, and with intent to meet consumers in what they need and what they're wanting and moving outside of the San Juan metro area, but then certainly that we're making significant investments in these emerging markets that are interested in direct flights to Puerto Rico and want to discover or rediscover our island.
Right, right. What are some of the new emerging markets that are going to be a focus for you? You talked about the East Coast, and that's always been a core focus for Puerto Rico, but it sounds like there's other parts of the U.S. that are a big focus now, right?
Yeah, so we were pleased to get some new routes from Nashville and St. Louis specifically, a route from Detroit that is back up and running, but also Ohio markets, Indianapolis, and certainly those additional Texas markets are always of interest. But
absolutely.
Lots of movement in the Midwest especially, and as we're able to establish those routes, then looking even farther west.
Well, it seems like Puerto Rico has so much momentum now. Alisha, it's really been a pleasure, and I'm so happy to see Puerto Rico back as such a great place to visit, and we can all get there soon. If everyone wants to learn more about Discover Puerto Rico, you can go to discoverpuertorico.com. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you so much.